Hello and welcome back to another lecture. In this lecture, I'll show you how to use Visual Studio to interact with your AWS environment programmatically. Up to this point, we have been using the AWS Management Console to create resources in our AWS environment. In this lecture, we are going to install Visual Studio on our computer, and once we have installed Visual Studio on our computer, we are going to create resources in our AWS environment from our local computer without signing in into the management console. To start, the first thing we are going to do is create an IAM user, and we are going to give that IAM user programmatic access. I'm going to select Services, and I'm going to come down to Security, Identity, and Compliance, and I'm going to select IAM. In the IAM dashboard, select Users, and add a user. We are going to give our user a name. And under select AWS access type, I'm going to give this user programmatic access. This part is very important. I am also going to give this user the AWS Management Console access. For this particular lecture, giving the user AWS Management Console access is optional. I'm going to continue using this user after this lecture. That's why I'm giving this user the AWS Management Console access. Next, I'm going to create a custom password. And I'm not going to reset my password when I sign in for the first time. So I'm going to uncheck this box. Then I'm going to click Next for permissions. And under permissions, we are going to attach an existing policy directly to this user. So I'll select that option. And under your AWS Manage policy down here, the first policy we are going to attach to this user is the Administrator Access Policy. I'm going to select it. We are going to attach another policy to this user. Under the filter policy in the search box, type IAM. And once you've typed IAM, under the search results, select the IAM self-managed service specific credentials. I'm going to select it. Then I'm going to click Next for tag. I'm not going to add any tag. Click Next to review. And review everything. I'm going to select Create User. And we have successfully created our user. When we create a user for the first time, because we gave this user programmatic access, this user is going to have an access key ID and secret access key. So what you need to do is select Download CSV. And once you select Download CSV, it is going to download the user's credentials, which is the access key ID and secret access key, to this Excel file and save it on your computer. So make sure you download the CSV file. That's very important. Then once you've downloaded the CSV file, we are going to close this page. And I have created my user, and you can see the user here. While we are still in the IAM console, there's one more thing we need to do. We want this user to be able to interact with code commit and create repository using Visual Studio. So to do that, we need to generate a gate credentials for this user. So I'm going to select this user. And once you select the user, under the Security Credentials tab, I'm going to scroll down. Under HTTPS Gate Credentials for AWS Code Commit, I'm going to select Generate Credentials. And once you've generated that credentials, make sure you download the credentials. I'm going to select Download Credentials. And once you select Download Credentials, it is going to download the code commit credentials to your computer. In my case, it has downloaded this user's code commit credentials, and you can see it here. Another thing I want to mention is, if you want to interact with code commit in your AWS environment using Visual Studio, make sure you install Git on your computer. We installed Git on our computer in the last lecture, and I'll leave a link in the description. I'm going to close this. And that's all we need to do in IAM. I'm going to go back to the home page. Next, we are going to install Visual Studio on our computer. I'm going to open a new tab, and in Google, type Visual Studio. Under your search results, select Downloads, and on the Downloads page, you can see the free download here. If you are using Windows, you are going to use the Windows option, and if you are using Mac, you can find the free download here. So based on which computer you are using, you can download the version you want. Since I'm using Windows computer, under Visual Studio 2019 Community, I'm going to select free download. And it is going to download the exe file on my computer. You can see it right here. Once it has downloaded the exe file, I'm going to double click to open it. I'm going to select yes. And I'm going to click continue. Once this options comes up, under web and cloud, we are going to select the ASP.NET. I'll select it and I'm going to click install. I'm not going to take the survey. I'm just going to say not now. And I'm going to wait for it to complete installing Visual Studio on my computer. Once you have installed Visual Studio on your computer, it is going to open it. And just in case if it doesn't open Visual Studio, select the Start menu. And under Recently Added, you see Visual Studio 2019. Select it and it is going to open it. The next thing you are going to do is you are going to sign in with your Microsoft account. Visual Studio is made by Microsoft, so to use it, you need to have a Microsoft account. And if you don't have a Microsoft account, you can create one here. But since I have a Microsoft account, I'm going to sign in. And once you sign in, it is going to open this page for you. If you are signing into Visual Studio for the first time, it may also ask you to select the type of color theme you want. But because I've used Visual Studio before, it has selected this dark template for me, and this is my preference from my last install. So what we are going to do now is I'm just going to minimize this too. And I'm going to close this page because I don't need it anymore. And let's open another Google page. And in the search box, let's type aws.amazon.com/Visual Studio. And once you type it, press enter. And it is going to bring you to this page. And on this page, we want to download and install AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio. We just installed Visual Studio 2019 on our computer. So I'm going to select this option to download it. I'll just click it. On this page, select download. And it has now downloaded on my computer here. I'm going to double click it to open it. And the installer is now opening. I'm going to select yes. And on this option, it is asking you to select the products you want to install this extension to. And the product is Visual Studio 2019. So make sure that is checked and click install. To install this extension, we have to close Visual Studio. So let me open it back up and I'm going to close it. And once you close it, it should start installing the extension. There you go. So I'm going to wait for the extension to be installed. And it has successfully installed the toolkit for Visual Studio 2019. You can see the check mark here. So all I'm going to do is close it. And we can close this page as well. And now select the Start menu and open Visual Studio 2019. And I'm going to maximize it. To connect Visual Studio to our AWS environment, the first thing we are going to do is select Continue without code. If you are opening Visual Studio for the first time, after you've installed the AWS Toolkit, you may get this Get Started option. And on this page, all you have to do is enter the access key and secret key of the user you created. To make it easier for you to enter the credentials, you can select Import from CSV file, then browse to the location where you save the CSV file for that user, Remember, it is the one with the access key and secret key, not the code commit credentials. Select the credentials for the new user. Then once you've imported everything, you are going to select save and close. But if you are on this page and that page didn't pop up, a good way to get it is select the View tab and come down and select AWS Explorer. And it is going to open the AWS Explorer. If you want to add a new user, you will select this Add New Account Profile. The second one is if you want to edit a profile you already have in here. And the third one is if you want to delete a profile. Since we are trying to add a new profile for our user, we'll select New Account Profile. And it is going to open this menu. Under Profile Name, I'm going to enter the name of my user. And under Access Key ID and Secret Access Key, I'm going to select Import from CSV file. Then browse to the location where I saved the file. I'm going to select the new user credentials, not the code commit, the new user credentials. Select Open. And it is going to import in your access key ID and secret access key. Then select OK. And there you go. It has created a profile for my user. And I can now use this user profile to interact with my AWS environment from Visual Studio. Also remember that this user will only be able to interact with your AWS environment based on the IAM policy that you gave this user. In the case of this user, I gave this user an administrator access. So that means that this user can interact with all the services in my AWS account, except for the billing. So for example, if I select EC2, you can see I have IAMs, elastic IPs, instances. I can right click on the EC2 and launch new instance. And also I can create an S3 bucket. So if I go under S3, you can see all the buckets I currently have in my account. You can see them here. I can right click again and I can create a bucket from Visual Studio in my AWS account. And also you have all these other services here that you can interact with. This is how you install Visual Studio and connect it to your AWS account. Let's test it now and see if it is working. I'm going to create a bucket in my AWS account using Visual Studio. So I'm going to right click on Amazon S3 and I'm going to select Create Bucket. I'm going to give the bucket a name. And once you enter the name, click OK. And you can see it has created the bucket in my AWS environment. It is the username Visual Studio Bucket. Now let's go to our AWS account to see if the bucket is there. I'm going to minimize this. And in the AWS Management Console, I'll select Services and I'll select S3 under Storage. And under my bucket name, you can see the bucket I just created in Visual Studio. The username Visual Studio Bucket. You can see it in my AWS account. And I can click it to open it. And you can see the bucket here. So this is how you install Visual Studio and connect it to your AWS account. In the next lecture, we are going to be connecting Visual Studio to Code Commit, and we are going to test whether we can create a repository using Visual Studio. If you like this lecture, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture.